Good morning, everyone. Our topic for today is all about the globalization and pluralism and new challenges to ethics. The group members are Kichi Peñarroyo, Eliza Lombis, Jackie Salazar, and James Roy Basco. Globalization. According to John Neverdeen Peters, globalization is like a prism in which major disputes over the collective human condition are now referred to question of capitalism, inequality, power development, ecology, culture, gender, identity, population, all come back in landscape where globalization did it. So meaning, globalization is like a prism which is like triangular with refracting surfaces, and according to John Neverdeen Peters, there are conditions of it, and one of these questions referring to capitalism, and we thought that capitalism as an economic system that control property with their interests, demand, and supply to make a profit. When we say inequality, it is the unequal and unjust distribution of resources and opportunities in a given society. To build a business, which one of the way to make globalized and the development that may enhance for productivity. Through their ecology, culture, gender, identity, even the population that may all and come back to form a globalized country. Globalization and pluralism according to Norman Pace 2016. The possibility of pluralism is a consequence of the global order where people champion the cause of equality. While dismissing concept of discrimination and ethnocentrism, it is not an idea set in itself, but it's a rather way of posturing oneself in the world. So, it means that we all know that every act we do, there's always consequences behind. And according to Norman Pace, there are possible consequences in pluralism that may limit the boundaries to have equality where there is no discrimination. All we have is the power of freedom to choose their own group and ethnicity. This globalization and pluralism is interrelated to one another to make things successful, not just for one but for all the development that may world globalize. Pluralism. Generally, pluralism is a philosophical theory that there is more than one basic substance or principle. In epistemology, pluralism is the position that there is not one consistent means of approaching truths about the world but rather many. So, the meaning of this is that pluralism is the quality of being plural, which means containing more than one, and it is the reality of theory that compose a plurality of entities that may diverse ethnic, racial, religious, or social group that maintain and develop the traditional culture, which is not composed of one but composed of more than one that may approach the truths about the world to be consistent.
Moral pluralism. Moral pluralism is an idea that there can be conflicting moral views that are each worthy of respect. There are values that are equally correct and fundamental, yet they conflict with each other. Some of the values are incommensurable and there is no objective ordering of them in terms of importance. Moral pluralism is a mathematical theory rather than a theory of normative ethics or a set of value itself. Another explanation of moral pluralism is that one common feature of our moral lives that we've already encountered are conflicts of duties. There are often more than one thing that we are morally obligated to do, and when we can't satisfy both obligations, we have to choose one to satisfy and one to fail. So, example of moral pluralism is this situation. A woman has the opportunity to rush inside and save the children trapped in the burning building. But in doing this, she may die and leave her own child an orphan. So the morality there is that you have to choose one to satisfy and one to fail. Moral pluralist. They advocate flexibility when faced with competing perspectives. They evaluate the issues, various moral standpoints in deciding and taking action. Many of moral issues are extremely complicated. Knowing that many moral issues are extremely complicated, they propose that no philosophical approach will always provide all the answer. So example, yung binigay ko kanina, do sa situation where a woman has the opportunity to rush inside and save the children in a trap in the burning building, a moral pluralist would conclude that there is no definitive way to decide which is the better course of moral action because as I have said earlier, they must choose one to fail and one to succeed. Globalization and pluralism. It is not a way of judging people at face value, but allowing and giving them a voice. Thus, people's stories, their ways, and the rationale of their actions are far more significant than what we think about them. So, if we can connect globalization and pluralism, pluralism is a positive response to diversity in a globalized world because pluralism involves taking decisions and actions as individuals and societies that are grounded in respect for diversity. Diversity is not a burden to be endured. Rather, it is an opportunity to be welcomed in the globalized world.
New challenges to ethics.
Multiculturalism as pluralism. Multiculturalism as an example of pluralism equally represent competing interests in the society and champions coexistence of different cultural beliefs, practices, and traditions. Hence, pluralism in this sense values acceptance and rejects discrimination. It champions equality and fosters tolerance and diversity. Multiculturalism gave way to ethical pluralism. So first, let's define multiculturalism. It refers to the coexistence of diverse religious, ethnic, or cultural groups with a society. Sinasabi dito na ang societies na kung saan ang mga tao ay may kanya-kanyang different cultural and religious identities. Sabi din dito, hindi mo kailangang i-give up sa kung ano yung cultural or religious background mo to be accepted in this society. Yung pluralism advocates diversity. In other words, diversity is not only a healthy component daw of society, but also a desirable component. Ethical monism, relativism, and pluralism. The first one is ethical monism. There is only one moral standard. There is an absolute truth and that ethic is normative. Sa ethical monism, sinasabi dito na that the former indicates there is a single supreme rule that regulates morality. Our Lord gave the disciples abundant reasons to believe that He was with them even though they were not yet able to understand the way in which we had come. I think monism was consistent with the great ethical facts of human and divine personality, together with freedom, responsibility, sin, guilt, atonement, and retribution. The second one is ethical relativism. There can be no right answer since truth is relative from culture. All ethical frameworks have some validity. Sa ethical relativism, claims that there are no universally valid moral principles. And dito sa ethical relativism, parang sinasabi dito na what thought to be moral by many in one country may be thought to be immoral by many in another country and even made illegal in another country. And the last one is ethical pluralism. Plurality of moral truths, acceptance that there may be more than one correct moral frameworks that we can use. Sa ethical pluralism, ay maraming theories about sa kung ano ba dapat yung right and wrong, that which may be incompatible and or incommensurable with our own personal moral norms. Ang example nito ay it is wrong to lie, so that in contrast, it is based that all ethical decisions can be and should be derived from one principle. We always remember that ethical pluralism stands in slight contrast to moral particularism, which can deny that any moral principle exists.
Ethical challenges of globalization. free market competition. Critics describe globalization as a process driven by progressive capitalist countries to perpetuate their economic and political domination. Globalization and the progression of the laissez-faire capitalism deepen inequalities within and between nations is ethically condemnable for both consequentialist and deontological standpoints. Consequentialist standpoint. It fails to maximize happiness for the greatest number of people. The ontological standpoint is condemnable on the account that exploited population are treated as means to an end and not as end in themselves. Another problem with globalization is that states are in effect increasingly losing their sovereignty. Ecologically speaking, another moral challenge arising out of globalization is the problem of handling the global environment in order to prevent a global ecological collapse. Industrial capitalism, an essential partner of globalization, is chiefly responsible for the damage of the ozone layer and the escalation of global warming. Human-environment systems is the significant relation between human and their natural environment and other broad implication of this connection.
That's all and thank you.